Alright, so we left off chapter 10. Alright, so what's up, YouTube? Angry Jackalope, Rob Ricks, back with another Convergence 2012 reading for your enjoyment. This will be out when I'm on vacation down in Southern California. So I'm going to try to, let's see, how many can I do here? So chapter 10. Whoa, what the fuck? 11, 12, 13, 14. So I think we get to chapter 15. That doesn't seem like that's too much there. So we're gonna, that's the goal, is to get to chapter 15, all right? Are you guys down? Are you down to go with it? All right, let's do this. Now, I'm on shift right now, so that means that if I have to break away, I'll have to break away, and then I'll just have to edit it and all that good stuff. All right, so anyway. Chapter 10, Weird Coincidence. December 15th, 2011, New York, 12:27 a.m. Richard sat in his office browsing emails of Google News reports when he stumbled upon several reports in the San Francisco area describing an aurora over the city. Interesting. He picked up his cell phone and pressed number 2. A series of rapid tones followed and he waited. "Hello," answered a grumpy, irritated voice. "Sorry calling so late. It's Richard. Hey, did you catch the news of an aurora in the Bay Area night before last?" A pause. "No. We're not doing any testing of the unit. It wasn't us." Another pause. "You don't think they're here, do you?" "It's only a year away, you know. We knew eventually they'd start showing up. I want a team there checking it out. I want an answer to this question. How long before the unit is working?" We do a final test next month." He nodded. "Good. I'd also like to have a discussion with our other friends to see what they know." "That may be a bit difficult." Richard could feel his heart beating faster. "Why is that?" A pause. "I said, why is that?" "Well, I've left some messages already and they're not responding. No emails, text, or anything. It's been a week." "Never mind. I'll contact them myself. Let me know once you know something." "I will." Richard hung the phone up. He leaned back in his chair and pulled his hand to his chin. He stroked his beard and smiled. "I wonder if you're here, my old friend." Chapter 11, Special Markings. December 15th, 2011, Salt Lake City, 9:01 a.m. Zenari was feeling the strain of maintaining the mirrors. She was making good progress, but it was taking its toll on her. She moved very slowly when she moved at all. She was in a small building, isolated from the world, and she just meditated and focused. She felt a slight familiar vibration at the base of her skull. "Kuthanaga?" "Do not waste your energy speaking, young one." She smiled. "It's good to hear from you. I'm ahead of schedule, and I'm about to send the mirrors further out." "How do you feel?" "I am fine. Why do you ask?" "Zenari, please do not insult me. I was with you during the time bend." She paused. "You were? I did not feel you." "No, you would not. You had your hands full." She smiled. "Yes, I suppose I did." "Zenari, please be more careful. If you were to fall, I would be devastated. I am very fond of you, wild one." "And I of you, old one." He smiled at her bold words. "When we see each other again, we will talk, Zenari. Continue efforts. I only hope the others can match your results. Be well." "As with you." And he was gone again. Zenari was a little embarrassed that she was being watched, but also flattered. The great Kuthanaga was monitoring her. She wondered if her father had anything to do with the extra attention, or was there something else happening. In any event, she was happy he had checked in on her. The mirrors were reporting constantly, and she was getting lost with data, names, locations, auras, etc. Keeping it all organized and not losing herself was a task in itself. But pushing the mirrors out and keeping them from getting too curious was a serious issue that continued to arise, since they were identical to her and shared her decision making. There were things she could control and things she couldn't. The best way to ensure a mirror wouldn't go too far into a particular subject was to pause all the mirrors and divert her focus into one in question. Then she then would do the marking, pull back to her haven, and allow the others to continue. This would not happen very often, but it did happen a couple of times an hour, lasting no more than 15 to 30 seconds. She was sensing a mirror's curiosity with a woman. Zenari focused on the mirror, and suddenly she was standing outside a large home colored maroon with white trim. The air was cool, and a slight breeze was blowing. The heavy scent of rose hung in the air, and Zenari noticed lots of rose bushes neatly trimmed and of different colors lined the perimeter of the house. She saw the woman whom the mirror was so fixated on, and saw why. Her aura was prismatic and shifted constantly. Zenari had never seen an aura like that before and was unsure why it would shift so drastically. The woman was asleep on her couch, and Zenari passed through the wall to get a closer look. The woman was in her late 40s and was wearing flannel pajamas that were slate gray in color. The woman was starting to gray just a little on the sides of her hair and looked to be in good physical shape. Her eyes were moving rapidly, and she seemed to be deep in a dream of some sort. Zenari wondered why the woman wasn't awake like the majority of the other people in the area. There was no one else in the house. Glancing down at the coffee table in front of the woman, she saw a mail addressed to Rachel Jones. Zenari was curious as to what the woman was dreaming of, and she closed her eyes and gently massaged the last golden slab of her necklace. She was now visualizing what Rachel was seeing in her dream, and it made Zenari pause. The woman was watching as the ground heaved upwards and large shards of broken earth flew to the sky. The air was filled with an acrid smell, and sounds of screams and chaos surrounded them. Hot smoke was everywhere, and in the distance the ground smoldered, and a faint glow of molten lava was peeking from the distorted waves of heat. To the right there was a large group of humans who were not afraid. They were sitting and had their eyes closed. Sitting in the center of the group was Kuthanaga in his native form. Rachel ran towards the group as if to join them. Kuthanaga stood up as if he sensed something. He saw the woman running towards them. He extended his arm. A shimmering appeared around them, and a small hole opened up. Kuthanaga looked past the woman, almost in the direction of Zenari, and he pointed. Zenari could not hear what he was saying, but Rachel glanced back, and what she saw caused terror to fill her. She ran faster, and when she was only 50 feet from Kuthanaga's protective circle, Zenari saw a large form moving so fast it was nearly a blur, and it was heading straight for Rachel. Kuthanaga pulled out his gaklokun from his neck and threw it back towards two humans who were on their feet. A small Asian woman caught it, and a young man was hot on the heels of Kuthanaga. Kuthanaga collided with the large form. The small Asian woman held the gaklokun in her hands and she began to channel it. She knew some of the Anukai protection spells. The shield sprung back around the group, and Rachel made it inside. Kuthanaga was battling fiercely in a way Zenari had never seen an Anukai warrior fight. He was fighting with such blind rage. The creature he was locked in combat with was a draconian, the largest that Zenari had ever seen. He easily dwarfed Kuthanaga, but it didn't matter. Kuthanaga was much too fast for the drake to hit, and the tall human man had a pistol. He fired twice, and both times he hit the drake. The drake fought on, and the human waited for a shot to present itself again. Just when it seemed that Kuthanaga was winning, he exchanged word with the drake, and his face showed a wide range of emotions, from rage to pain. It hurt Zenari to see him so upset. They continued fighting. The ground was breaking apart all around them. The human lost his balance and fell to the ground. Kuthanaga didn't need to see it. He sensed the danger the man was in and jumped back towards him. He understood how fast the drake was. He underestimated how fast the drake was, and the draconian launched himself as well, caught Kuthanaga before he could land. Kuthanaga tried to twist and use the momentum of the drake against it, but the drake had locked his claws into Kuthanaga's thigh and shoulder. Kuthanaga screamed a silent scream and pulled the human up as he did. The beast tore a large section of his thigh off, and blood sprayed everywhere. The man rolled, stood, and shot a single shot, and his aim was true. The bullet hit the drake in his right eye, and he bellowed as he released Kuthanaga. The human went to shoot again, and the gun did nothing. He cursed and started reloading it. The drake motioned at Rachel and said something to Kuthanaga, who was lying in a pool of blood that continued to grow around him. The drake laughed a long, cruel laugh as he bolted away as the human started to shoot again. Kuthanaga said something to the man who was sobbing. Then the great Kuthanaga took his last breath and went limp on the ground. Rachel gasped and jerked abruptly, suddenly wide awake. Zenari noticed she had been crying during the experience, and she wiped away her tears and watched the woman. Rachel sat up, pulled out a small book, and started writing notes in it. She paused suddenly and smiled. I know you're here. I cannot see you, but I know you are here. Aren't you, Zenari? Zenari tried not to gasp, but she did anyway. Don't be afraid. I learned about you when you popped in to watch my vision. I've had that dream several times now, but it changes constantly. Different places, different groups of people. Sometimes I die, sometimes a young man dies. This is the first time that ᶠᶸᶜᵏ died. I feel your sadness. I wouldn't be too concerned. The dreams only come true sometimes. Zenari marked the woman and decided she'd have to come back another time. Her concentration was wavering because of her emotions. Come back any time, Zenari. You're always welcome here. Zenari walked back outside, pulled back to her solitary sanctuary, and allowed the mirrors to continue. She was deeply troubled by what she had seen and what it could mean. Chapter 12. Evidence. December 15, 2011, San Francisco, 1:37 p.m. Jeremy Masters stood outside of one Rincon Hill. He was in his mid-60s, stood tall, and had an air of importance about him. He was lean, and his features were exaggerated with deep lines. His eyes were focused and had deep dark bags under them from lack of sleep. He was aggravated by the way his boss had treated him. He knew there was importance to the work that he did, but at the same time he wanted to actually live what was left of his life. It seemed he had always been under someone's thumb, and at his current stage in life, that role was growing old. Richard had been very specific about having a team on the scene in San Francisco to examine the anomaly. The team arrived, and their findings led him to the spot where he stood. Looking up, he could see on the top floor corner unit there was plastic sheets covering a large gaping hole. Taking out a small handheld computer and a sensor rod, he pointed to the hole. The machine hummed loudly and numbers ran across the screen. Great. He knew that the hole was the origin of the aurora, and because of that fact alone, he could deduce that only one of two options could explain it. With the data he had just collected, he narrowed down even further inside. Neither of the answers would please Richard, and so Jeremy stood waiting and pondering the best way to announce his findings. Jeremy's phone rang, and he took a deep, long breath and let it out long and hard. He shook his hands quickly until they tingled. He reached up to his Bluetooth headset and pressed the small button once. A beep, and he could hear Richard's impatient breathing on the other end of the line. Well? He shrugged. It's most likely Anukai. Slim chance it's a copy of our tech. Give me percentages. He rolled his eyes and thought about it. 98% Anukai. Thank you, Jeremy. That's all I needed to know. Take the rest of the day and enjoy yourself. Richard hung up the phone and Jeremy started walking. That went better than I thought, he said to himself. He walked on and whistled the Guns N' Roses song Patience as he did. Chapter 13, Old Friends. December 15th, 2011, San Francisco, 4:40 p.m. Richard sat in his tall leather chair and wondered aloud, Is it you, my old friend? The address of one Rincon Hill was of interest to Richard because he once had a condo in that same building himself. He really liked the location as well as the amazing view. Richard wondered if it were a mere coincidence that an Anukai had a condo in the same exact building as he once did. He regarded a laptop, which was closed on the desk in front of him. The desk was massive, made of koa wood, and had black obsidian carvings of dragons along either edge, which led to the floor. Black iron wrapped the ends of the desk and had a brilliant sheen to it. The only thing that sat on his desk were a Falcon Micro custom laptop and a cell phone. His office was perpetually dark, as all of the windows were designed to auto-tint to keep it the way he liked it. He preferred the dark to work in. Flipping open the laptop, he waited as the machine woke up. He typed in his password and waited. A screen popped up, and he opened his Outlook program. A few seconds passed, and I heard a familiar tone letting him know he had email. Scanning the messages, he paused, his cursor above an email with the subject, Project Tiamat Status, from Dimitri Valdo. He double-clicked on a message. Project is successful in basic trials. We conduct the final test December 22nd, 2011. Request subject is the following specs. Male, good condition, 25 to 35 years old, blue eyes preferred, quantity 5. Female, good condition, 25 to 35 years of age, blue eyes preferred, quantity 5. Male, good condition, 3 to 5 years of age, green eyes preferred, quantity 5. Female, good condition, 3 to 5 years of age, green eyes preferred, quantity 5. Looking forward to results. I think you'll be very happy with them. Please advise when I can expect as test subjects. Dimitri. He shook his head. More subjects? He had just sent subjects the month before for the trials. He pressed forward on the email program and typed in J. Christensen at hazalcorp.com. He waited a moment and hit send. Richard grabbed his cell phone, pressed and held the number 5. A second later, various tones rapid dialed. The phone rang twice and then, "Hello, this is Christensen. I just sent you an email from our friend Dimitri. What does he need now?" "It's in the email." Richard could hear the faint tone in the other end of the line. "Yeah, I got it." Richard could tell Christensen was reading the message. "Yeah, this shouldn't be a problem. Think it'll take a day or so. Thank you." Richard hung the phone up and slid it on a desk. He stood up and started pacing the office. If Anakai were on the crust, he wondered why. Was it the humans? The Draconians had worked long and hard to achieve the progress they had made on the crust, and they wouldn't give up that, no matter what. The Anukai had always been against the cultivation of the humans as slaves and test subjects with all their lofty moral objections. They were blinded by their righteous dogma, so much so that they had failed to see the humans were very special. Since they were part of the earth, they shared many of the things which made her special. It was the latent abilities which the Draconians were after. The potential was there for them to be much greater than even an Anukai. It was this fact alone which allowed the genetic manipulation of Anukai DNA and humans to be blended so easily, a secret which only a few high-ranking Draconians knew. The Kunaks were the ones who discovered and deserved all the credit. They learned early on that the spark existed within the humans. The humans called it the soul, but even they did not realize how strong it was within them. Richard wondered if the Anukai knew what he knew, and if that were the reason they were on the crust. Perhaps they were seeking the ones with the strongest souls. There were rumors that the Kunaks were playing both sides of the fence, working with the Draconians as well as the Anukai. It wouldn't matter, though, since the Draconians had been planning for a long time and had thought out all the possible scenarios. Richard had a separate issue. Should he report suspicion to the Great Ones? He shook his head. He would wait and see. There was time to alert them if it came to that, but for now, he wanted to focus on Tiamat and find more evidence. He sat back down at his desk and reached to the bottom drawer. Inside was a small silver box that he withdrew. He pressed his palm on the surface of the box, and the sound of sizzling flesh filled the room softly. He held it there, and he heard a slight clicking. He looked at his palm, and there were several burn marks on the surface. He knew they would be healed by the next morning, but it still bothered him. He had to withstand it every time he wished to open the box. He pressed down again on the still sizzling container, and it slid open, revealing a small black gem. He took the gem out, held it at eye level, and concentrated on it. He could feel a tingling sensation over his body, and the room was filled with the smell of ozone. The air shifted in front of him, and he could see several small shapes sitting Indian style with their heads resting towards each other's head. One of them leaned back and glanced in the direction of Richard. The figure was short, no taller than 4 feet, and very thin. His head was oval-shaped, wider at the top, tapering off to a slightly pointed chin. It had 2 large, almond-shaped, black, glassy eyes. Its mouth was small and tight-lipped. The skin was pale gray in color, and the skin had heavy texturing to it. The being was naked, had no sexual organs. The legs were so thin that it was amazing it could support the frame of a being, let alone move. The feet were forked and had only 2 large toes and a heel. It pointed a long, gnarly finger in the direction of Richard. "What do you want, Drake Lord?" Its mouth didn't move at all. "I've got some question for you. First and foremost is, why have you not replied to any of the researchers' emails?" The being paused. "We were distracted. We think we have discovered something very disturbing." "Disturbing? Like the Anukai on the crust?" The being shook its head slowly. "No. We were unaware that Anukai had come back. That is not necessarily a bad thing." The other stood up and turned to face Richard. "Well, what has you all so spooked?" "This." They motioned, and the images of deep space materialized in between Richard and the group. Richard saw a star burning brightly, and suddenly it went supernova. Another image of the same star from a different angle showed it collapsing in on itself in a brilliant explosion. The last image showed an exploding star in different shades of blues and greens, and the blast shot outward. "What is that?" That is a gamma blast, aimed in our general direction. Wait, you mean? Yes. It looks like perhaps they have discovered our location after all these years. Are you sure it's going to hit us? They shook their head in unison. There are two black holes within its trajectory. We are unsure what those will do with the blast. We analyzed the collapsing star, though, and it was young and healthy. You are aware of the sister moon this planet used to have. Richard glanced at them. Gamma? They nodded. Even if this is not them attacking, they are very close to us. It is only a matter of time. When this planet wakes, we will be discovered. They paused and then continued. When they detect us and use that weapon, we will not survive it. Richard nodded. What if we use Tiamat? Not enough data to determine the answer to that question. Fine. Well, we have time. Next time, let us know as soon as you discover something of this magnitude. One other question. You don't deal with the Anakai, do you? They shook their head. We ourselves do not, but there are Kunaks who do. Is this an issue? Depends. I don't like finding out Anakai are on the crust, especially since we are so close with Tiamat. Additionally, I would hate to find out that Kunaks gave the secret of the humans to the Anakai. We Kunaks have a pact with the Draconians. We have honored it all these years, and still do. No Kunak will reveal it that is within this circle. You can be sure of this. There are only two Kunaks who live outside of our circle. We do not speak for them, and we know for a fact these two have not revealed the secret either. Richard nodded. The Kunaks were many things, but one thing they were not was liars. They took their pride and honor very seriously. I meant no disrespect. They all nodded. None has been taken, Drake Lord. Richard put the gem back into the silver box, and it sizzled as it touched its padded lining. As he did, the images of the Kunaks faded from view. He closed the box and placed it back in the drawer. He put his hands to his temple and growled a low growl. His temples were pounding, and in his chest he felt a cold fear he had never felt in his life. He started a new email and addressed it to dvaldo at harzalcorp.com. The message read, Dimitri, use all resources to bring Tiamat online as soon as possible. This is not a casual request. This is a revised directive. Something very urgent has been brought to my attention. Notify the whole team. Set a meeting up. I will be sending more information shortly. Your requested materials are being sourced and will be available within the next 48 hours. Richard. He set the priority to important and hit the send button. Fetching his phone, he dialed a number that he was hesitant to use. He dialed it slowly with precise purpose, and he waited. It rang once, and a deep voice said in Draconian, Is this line secured? Replying in Draconian, Richard said, Yes, I have a message. What is it? The voice demanded rudely. The planet slayers are near. There was a low guttural growl on the other end of the line. You had better be sure of this. I have been informed by the Kunaks High Council. I'll pass the message. I pray you are wrong. Richard hung the phone up and nodded. So do I. Chapter 14, Working. December 17, 2011, Las Vegas, 12:40 p.m. Kuthanaga had been in deep meditation for over 2 days, and Tim didn't disturb him. Joy had been more than happy taking the time to do some shopping and taking in the sights. They danced and partied hard, all the while avoiding a single drink and just enjoying their environment. After a whole day, they finally had an appetite to eat again. They discovered a buffet at the Wynn that quickly became a favorite of theirs until Monica introduced them to the Bellagio's VIP buffet. It was almost as if Vegas had two worlds, one in which everyone was part of, and a second, more exclusive, reserved for only the most elite of the world. Tim had tried gambling and discovered he was very unlucky. Joy, on the other hand, had managed to win $35,000 by betting $1,000 on Red 16. Tim almost fell when she hit it. They were enjoying themselves, and Tim couldn't help but think it was the calm before the storm. Joy was in the gym, located inside the suite working out, and Tim was watching TV. There were riots riots in New York, San Francisco, Chicago, and Los Angeles. People were on the street looting and grabbing food from wherever they could. It was surreal. Kuthanaga opened his eyes and stood. Welcome back, Dez, Tim said as Kuthanaga approached him. Hello, Tim. How have you and Joy been? Joy's in the other room working out. I've been chilling just watching on you. Just waiting on you. I figured sooner or later you'd get up and work would begin. Kuthanaga nodded. I've been keeping an eye on the others. Now is the time for us to take care of a couple of things. Are you ready? Tim stood up and nodded. Just need my jacket. Are we bringing Joy? Kuthanaga shook his head. No. She will stay here. Tim nodded. Let me tell her goodbye then. Tim walked into the gym and was still amazed that all of this was in a single suite. The room was huge. Joy pulled her earphones out and looked at Tim. She stopped the treadmill and wiped the sweat from her forehead. Something on his face told her everything before he could even say a word. She walked over, nodded, hugged him hard. Be careful, baby. He nodded. I will. He was scared, didn't know why. I love you, he said. Joy smiled and started to tear up. Love you too. Kuthanaga was standing there, and he waited. Joy wanted to ask what they were going to be doing, but she decided against it. I'm leaving the card with you, Tim said. Joy nodded, and Tim turned and walked out the room with Kuthanaga close behind him. Joy suddenly felt very alone as she heard the door latch on the front door. Tim and Kuthanaga walked towards the elevator. Tim, I need you to take off your right shoe. Tim looked at Kuthanaga and almost said something and stopped. He reached down and removed the shoe. The sock as well, please. Tim did as he was told, and Kuthanaga reached into his inside pocket and pulled out a slab of gold similar to what was on his gaklokun. He motioned over it, and a small, slim sliver detached. He closed his eyes and muttered something, and the black vein twined itself into the metal. The gold silver shimmered slightly and hung in the air as Kuthanaga put away the rest of the material. Kuthanaga looked at Tim in his eyes and sighed. I'm sorry for this, Tim. Tim looked confused. For what? Kuthanaga focused, made sure his security cameras were off, and moved quickly, and before Tim could tell what had happened, he was suddenly upside down. Kuthanaga motioned. Tim's mouth clamped shut, and he couldn't say a word. Kuthanaga took the silver and slowly inserted it into Tim's heel. The pain was intense and burned severely. A few moments later, the metal was penetrating bone, and Tim saw flashes of light as the pain slammed him. No blood poured out of the wound. It was almost as if the sliver consumed the blood and didn't allow it to pour forth. After the silver was deep within Tim's heel, Kuthanaga motioned over it, and then Tim swung back to his normal position. Tim glared at Kuthanaga, and suddenly he could speak again. He leaned in close to Kuthanaga and hissed, Dude, you could have fucking warned me. What the hell is it? Kuthanaga simply smiled and patted Tim on the shoulder. Insurance. Insurance? What the fuck do you mean insurance? Damn, it feels funny. It doesn't hurt anymore, but it tickles like a funny bone being bumped every time I put weight on it. Kuthanaga nodded. It's called the Martyr's Barb. It's there to help you. Yeah? It's called the Martyr's Barb. It's there to help you. Through it, I can be in contact with you under certain conditions. Tim put his sock-on shoe back on. Wait, isn't a martyr like someone who dies? Kuthanaga nodded as the elevator opened. He walked in and Tim followed him. I don't want to die, man. Kuthanaga smiled. And I don't want you to die. If things go the way they're supposed to, you won't die. And if things don't go the way they're supposed to, Kuthanaga looked at Tim long and hard, then we're all dead, and it won't matter. Tim swallowed hard, and he didn't like the way he was feeling. So what are we doing now? Tim asked. We're catching a flight. Where to? We're going to New York. What's in the Big Apple? A very special place, an old place. We need to bring the Earth's milk to it. Tim nodded. That didn't sound too bad. We're at the basement level of what used to be the Twin Towers. Tim stared at him. Are you serious? Kuthanaga nodded. There's more than one reason those buildings were brought down. They were sitting on a vein. We need access to that vein. Tim chuckled. What do you mean brought down? Terrorists did it with planes. I saw it all on the news. Kuthanaga nodded. You saw what they wanted you to see. The material used to bring those towers down was Kunuk technology. The Draconians needed to find a fear factor to push agendas through fast, and it worked. The Draconians are after the same thing I am, but they do not know how to access it. The Kunuks as well are baffled by the living veins of this planet. However, as I said, there were many reasons for those buildings to fall. Did you know there was a mountain of gold under the buildings? The gold is more important than you know. As material, as the material is very conductive of universal energy, as I explained before. When this planet wakes, so does the gold. Tim wasn't laughing anymore. So you're saying the Twin Towers were demolished by draconian aliens to steal gold and to mindfuck us? Kuthanaga nodded and glanced sideways at Tim. I believe I asked you to watch your language. Tim nodded. So we're gonna just walk into the Twin Towers construction site and find a vein? Yes. Tim threw his hands in the air. Whatever, man. Next you're gonna say the president is an alien. Kuthanaga smiled. You're learning fast. There have been a number of presidents who are draconians. Your current one is not, though. But they influence him. They hide in shadows, manipulating. Tim jammed his hands into his pocket and rolled his shoulders in. The more he knew, the more he wished he didn't know. The elevator opened and they started to walk out the Bellagio. The woman, who Tim had learned name was Monica Crawford, greeted Kuthanaga with a smile. Mr. Washington, is there anything else I could do for you? He nodded. Yes. Joy Sai is remaining here. We have some business and we will be gone for a few days. Please extend to her whatever she needs and bill my suite. That will not be a problem. Have a safe trip. We look forward to seeing you again. Kuthanaga waved as he continued out. Tim followed close behind him, and when the valet brought the Range Rover around, Tim got into the driver's side and buckled up. Kuthanaga got in, motioned for Tim to drive. An hour later, they were in line for security check. Tim still had his water bottle filled with Earth's milk, and he wondered how he was going to get through security. He also had forgotten he had his pistol and was getting nervous. Kuthanaga gave Tim a look and motioned for him to place his objects into the tin bin. Tim did as was instructed by security officers and put his bottle, wallet, car keys into the bin. He found some loose coins in his pocket and he placed them in as well. He stood in front of the large metal detector and he just knew he was going to get nailed. The security on the other end motioned for him to walk through, and as he did, he felt a slight tingling as he passed through with no alarms, no rush of guards, nothing. Kuthanaga followed as well, and nothing happened as he passed through either. The bins passed through the small inspection booth on the conveyor, and it was as if no one saw the large water bottle filled with milk. A few steps more, Tim felt the tingling sensation again. The weight of the gun was back. He glanced at Kuthanaga, who simply nodded. A little while later, they were on a plane leading to New York. The whole flight, Tim was silent, and he thought about Joy and what she was doing. Kuthanaga was also silent. He was wondering how Zanari was doing. He would check in with her and the others once they returned to Vegas. Tim wondered why they were traveling on a regular plane when Kuthanaga was fronting as if he was a high roller. Why not fly with a private plane? Why did they even drive from the Bay Area to Vegas? They could have flown over. One of the possible answers came to Tim suddenly. He realized Kuthanaga was getting to know him and Joy and wanted privacy. That would explain the drive to Vegas. But why fly on normal planes to New York? Was Kuthanaga afraid of the Draconians? Tim thought maybe he was, and wanted to stay off the radar by doing things normal. If Kuthanaga was playing it safe, then Tim was grateful. It was Kuthanaga who was afraid, then if Kuthanaga was afraid, then Tim knew he should be as well. Alright, so I got us to chapter 15. Just in time. My eyes are bugging out. Oh. I'll try to get another... Try to get another chapter in the next day or so. I'm trying to load these guys up so when I'm on vacation there's stuff for you guys to still watch and stuff. Alright guys, I'm tired as hell. I'm going to take a little break. Until next time, please be good to each other.